I want today's episode to be a little bit different. There's something I've been meaning to talk about. See, I've been working at a hospital as a CNA for a very long time. Well, at least I used to. And there were just so many things that I had the chance to encounter, to be a part of, to witness, all of that. And every now and then, I guess I can talk about it with you guys. But I wanted to speak on Baker Act today because, mental health is really important to me. And so working at a hospital, it really opened my eyes to a lot of things that I didn't see. I mean, of course, on a day-to-day, you might hear about things, but until you're like literally in that space where it's right in front of you, then you're not properly informed, and you never know what someone else might be going through. And if we can provide help in any way, then let's do that. So today's episode is a little bit different because I don't know. Someone tried to hurt themselves recently. Well, not tried. They did. And I guess I wanted to listen. I wanted to understand. And I wanted to just show up. And so I guess we can talk about it for a little bit. And I'll share little insights on moments when I had to deal with a patient who was Baker acted. So I'll try to attach this to the screen, but I'll read it from my phone. So the Baker Act in Florida, formerly known as the Florida Mental Health Act of 1971, it allows for the involuntary or voluntary examination and treatment of individuals experiencing a mental health crisis. It's essentially a process for providing emergency mental health services, which includes temporary detention for evaluation and treatment. The Baker Act is triggered when there's reason to believe someone has a mental illness, or they're unable or unwilling to determine if they need help and is likely to suffer harm if they don't receive care. So, you know what? Let's get into a more detailed breakdown. Key aspects of the Baker Act. The purpose of it is designed to provide crisis services for individuals with mental health conditions, similar to an emergency room for medical emergencies. Key aspect number 2, involuntary examination. Individuals can be taken to a receiving facility for an involuntary examination if they meet certain criteria, such as they have a mental illness, they are unable or unwilling to determine if an evaluation is needed, or without care, they're likely to suffer harm to themselves or to others. Key aspect number 3, voluntary admission. Individuals can also be admitted voluntarily, either by an adult, 18 plus, or a minor's parent. Key aspect number 4, duration. After an involuntary examination, a person can be held for up to 72 hours. Key aspect number 5, criteria for involuntary admission. An involuntary Baker Act admission requires a court to find that the individual is mentally ill, refuses or is unable to determine if placement is necessary, is likely to suffer neglect or harm, and that less restrictive options are not appropriate. Key aspect number 6, receiving facilities. Individuals are taken to designated mental health facilities for evaluation and treatment. And key aspect number 7 is the legal framework. The Baker Act is part of the Florida statutes, specifically Chapter 394. Some important considerations are as follows. Not just anyone. The Baker Act is not for everyone, and there are specific criteria that must be met. Potential for abuse. While intended to help, the Baker Act has been subject to criticism and lawsuits regarding potential misuse or wrongful detention, and that's according to a YouTube video from NBC6. The recent changes. According to a YouTube video, there have been recent changes to the law aimed at easing the process for involuntary services and allowing law enforcement to initiate exams more easily. There is a daily cost associated with being Baker Acted, says Florida Baker Act attorneys. And there is a link that you can also click on for further information if you'd like to research it. Now, in essence, the Baker Act is not a tool for providing emergency mental health care, but it's crucial to understand its purpose, its criteria, and its potential implications. I'll attach little clippings that I've found so that you can follow along, or you can pause it and read it if you'd like to, or if you're able to pinpoint where you might be going through something, or someone around you might be going through something where they might possibly be harm to themselves or to others. You know, as I worked there, what I can tell you firsthand is that oftentimes people seem so simple. Like, what could you possibly be going through? You know? You don't even really think that it could be going through anything, because as much as there are a lot of mediums out there regarding mental health, I don't really think we dive into it, really. I don't really think that we research it as much as we would like to, because there is a stigma attached to mental health. Like, people have kind of trivialized it to make it seem like, oh, it's not a big deal, but it is a big deal. There are lots of people out there who are struggling and who are being triggered, and not because something may not affect you a certain kind of way does not mean that it has no implications on another person. I used to work the night shift, and it's 12 hours per shift. At no point are you allowed to leave the room without informing someone so that a relief can be put in place for your departure. Whether that's you taking a bathroom break, whether that's you taking a walk, whether that's you going on lunch, or whether that's you going home. This person that you're attending to, they're vulnerable. Sometimes they really don't want to be here. So with the negative stigma that's already applied to mental illness, you'll find that they think that you're gonna judge them. But if you allow them to feel safe enough, then honestly, they'll trust your energy and they'll start talking to you. And sometimes, to be fair, sometimes they are restrained depending on how much, well, obviously the doctor is going to assess and evaluate them and determine their risk factor, so they may be restrained, but most times they're not. And along with the Baker Act, there is a Marchman Act. I can talk about that in another video so as to not provide much confusion, but it's a little bit similar. It's just that the Marchman Act is more of substance abuse, and the Baker Act has more to do with mental illness. A Baker Acted patient trumps everything else. You're trained to remain calm, because you can't be frantic with a person who is also going through something that is also making them kind of frantic. That wouldn't really work well. So if I'm talking about it and I seem a little bit calm, it's you're trained to kind of like not react really, but react if necessary, and react in terms of calling for help if it needs to. Like, you have to be alert, you have to be vigilant. So my first time being around a patient that was Baker Acted, I chose to be a sitter in that moment. And what it means to be a sitter is that you are assigned to this room for your entire shift, and you have to make sure that the room is completely safe. You have to remove telephone cords, you have to remove gloves, you have to just anything that a person can use to hurt themselves. in a position like this, when they're so vulnerable, you have to ensure that you follow proper protocol, because this is life or death right here in this moment. When I first had to experience that, I was just like, man, this person's already frightened out of their mind. They don't want to be here, because most of the times it's involuntary. You know, most of the times it's a family member that probably called the cops because they were afraid of what this person might do. So they're already there. They feel ashamed. They feel vulnerable. There's a stigma that goes against mental health. You know, they kind of feel like you're already judging them. You're looking down on them. You're thinking less of them. And that is weak of them. And it's so crazy, because I don't find that to be weak. But unfortunately, we live in a society where people act as if they're okay, because we're programmed to say that we're okay even while we're falling apart. So we hold them up to 72 hours. They're gonna just keep getting evaluated by nurses, by doctors, by the mental health staff, because we have to understand why you went to this length, right? But when you are dealing with someone who's Baker acted, you have to ensure that the room is as safe as you can make it. Mental health is something that we really should not take for granted. And I don't think we really speak on it as deeply and as clearly as we probably should. There's so much negativity attached to mental illness. There's just this stigma that a lot of people feel as though they won't ever be able to escape. And so for today's episode, the reason why I brought it up was because my friend doing that reminded me of a moment in time when I had to work at a facility that encompassed moments where people felt as though that was the only option. Hurting themselves was the only option. And you know, we can check in on people as often as we can. We can try to be proactive in understanding the way that they feel, the way how they're going about life. But unless that person really wants to let you in a particular kind of way, then there's nothing that you can do. But there are signs, okay? And my thing is, it is better to ask forgiveness than permission. Unfortunately, being Baker acted is not necessarily a fun thing for anyone, but it's a necessary thing if it prevents you from self-harming that can possibly lead to death. And my intention is not to trigger you in this video. It's just to provide some outline on what is happening and how we go about it day to day. People are facing a lot, okay? People are going through a lot. So if you feel as though you can identify with anything that I've outlined tonight, I think we should go for it. I think we should prevent it the best way we can. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share today. So thank you so much for your time. You have a beautiful rest of your day.